Hey, what's going on? A good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome on into the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show here with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. And Claibs, you're probably a little tired of being at the ballpark this weekend. And once again, another Friday night where the game, where you had to show up for work and the game never happened.
We've seen a lot of rain this weekend, that's for sure. But, you know, when you win 2 out of 3, you'll take it. But at the end of the day, it's that time of the year. And this is something that you and I have talked about before. Major League Baseball has to figure out how they're going to handle things with rain situations because, you know, you have a team like Washington who only comes in like one time a year. Mm-hmm. And we were lucky this weekend. But at some point, you got to figure out how are you going to structure days where you're completely rained out at the end of the weekend. And as I said to you before, I think Major League Baseball has to take 1 week a month and say you're off. Well, maybe you should do it every month. Monday or Thursday, the whole league is off with the exception of 6 games for TV purposes. And if you're in that situation where you had a rain out or a rain delay, you play that day. Other than that, you're off. That way, I think it gives everybody a little bit more convenience. Mm-hmm. It saves your pitching. Players don't travel on their off day because we've been lucky this year where players haven't had to travel on off days to go back and play one game. At least the Cardinals haven't. I know some other teams have. And that way, it keeps everything a good flow. Now, with that said, do you need to play 162 games?
No, and I saw over the past week, I saw it was brought up at the All-Star game about playing a 154, 156 game schedule, and I guess you continue to reduce the amount of division games that you play because you play everybody in the league. You play all 29 other teams, so that's good. That's a positive.
Expand, though. That's because expansion. When expansion rolls around, I think you can do 2 things. Reduce the schedule, make it more regional as far as your divisions, and just do complete realignment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need a National and American League anymore.
No, especially with the DH gone now, with everything else. Yeah, just a complete realignment, and we've seen that. We've seen that with sports, and we'll get into. I mean, we talked about last week the NBA, what they're doing new this year with their schedule. We're seeing sports starting to evolve, starting to change things up a little bit about the way that they are going to do things. If you haven't noticed yet, we are out here at Mungenast Alton Toyota, 850 Homer Adams Parkway in Alton, Illinois. Claibs, I know you talked to Jamie a little bit before we went on the air.
Listen, I can tell you this right now. First of all, you go out and look at the lot. A lot of new cars, a lot of pre-owned cars, and I don't know what lot has a Volkswagen Beetle other than a Volkswagen dealership. And I don't even know whether one is in St. Louis. Point being, they have such a variety of cars right here that if you don't come out here and get something either A, for yourself or maybe for your kid who's going to college or maybe they're in high school and you want them to have something to get around in, this is the place because they have something for everyone, young and old.
Yeah, even
new and pre-owned. You name it, they have everything you're looking for, not to mention maybe one of the best sales staffs you'll find in St. Louis who understands people. They're willing to do deals. You know, there's some places you go, well, this is the price. It is what it is. Not here. They are willing to help you be happy. They're in the happiness business here.
Mention my name, get a discount. Mention Claibs' name, get an even bigger discount out here at Mungenast Alton Toyota. I think so. I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure your name carries.
Need a car, but
I mean, I bet if you ask your kids, I mean, they're both driving limit. I was going to say, I bet if you asked them, hey, you want a car? I bet both of them would say yes.
Listen, they're out of my pocket. I want them to stay out of my pocket.
They're not going to turn down a car.
Yeah, you're right. They may turn down a lot of things, but yeah. And here's the thing: I have a kid that's in the car business.
I was going to say, she still won't turn it down.
I can get somebody.
As Claibs mentioned, Cardinals win 2 out of 3 this past weekend. The Marlins in town this week, right tonight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you guys play
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And
game on Wednesday.
A few moves already being made. They didn't even wait for the media to get to the ballpark and make announcements. Genesis Cabrera has been designated for assignment, so the team now has a week to either trade him or release him if he's not going to go down to AAA.
Well, I saw this coming yesterday. Well, I saw it coming the other night, where he just I like him. I mean, he's got good stuff, but he tries to put himself in a position where he's got to earn the right to be in the 8th or 9th inning, and he hasn't done that. I mean, he can throw 97, 98, but he overthrows it. He doesn't know where it's going. He has no command right now, and I think that the situation is this, as you mentioned. They'll open up a roster spot, which means they have an idea of what they want to do down the road with regard to the trade deadline coming up and making sure they have room on the roster. Now, if he accepts the assignment, he goes to Memphis, works on his game, he comes back, maybe he can help. But maybe he says, I don't want it. He's free agent. Somebody will take him.
Oh, yeah. A lefty that throws almost 100? Yeah. Absolutely. And here's the thing, though. It's probably going to happen because how many times have we seen it happen to where it's benefited the Cardinals, where a relief pitcher who didn't have it somewhere else comes in here and ends up throwing innings and being serviceable. He's probably going to, with the stuff that he has, somebody might be able to figure it out somewhere, and he'll probably go somewhere and be a big part of a bullpen.
I agree wholeheartedly. But
that's the thing. It's benefited the Cardinals how many times in the past 20 years?
The Cardinals have had, I guess, for lack of a better term, they picked up low-hanging fruit, and I think that somebody will pick him up, and he'll be a good player, good pitcher, and maybe he just needs to change the scenery.
Right.
But the thing is, this is maybe why Tampa gave up on him, and that's how the Cardinals were able to get him.
Yeah. So possibilities for that spot. Who McGreevy probably jumps to mind right now. What have you heard, or what about
the thing about
where he
McGreevy,
is?
I mean, his numbers are impressive for a minor league. And I guess at this point, you have to open up the closet and make sure you know what you have within the organization. And I've said this to you before. I think the answer or the answers for the Cardinals' success this year is not in the organization. I don't think and we've seen everybody. And maybe McGreevy's ready, but I haven't heard the world get excited about what he's done. So, and here's another thing. We haven't seen Zach Thompson yet. You send him out to stretch out to be a long guy, and maybe he gets to start tonight.
Have they not announced who's starting tonight yet?
Announced it yet.
Because I know Jordan Montgomery is set for tomorrow.
Monty's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you can use Thompson and maybe Miles Michaelis, because Michaelis only threw 34 pitches on Friday night. But I think at some point you have to see what you have with Zach Thompson, who hasn't pitched since before the All-Star break. So you have to figure out what you have there. And I think that's going to dictate on what you do down the road as far as options, bringing somebody else in from another organization.
By the way, it was a perfect 3 innings that Michaelis threw on Friday night. It was 3 up, 3 down. And I was on the broadcast, and I looked at Ricky. I said, this guy may have no his stuff tonight. I mean, his stuff came out of his hand, and because he's a strike thrower, so he's always going to be in the zone. And against Washington, which is a team that when you look at them, they don't strike out a lot. They're like 3rd in the league in hitting. Yeah. Now, with that said, they don't hit a lot of home runs. Right. And this is a home run league now. But this was a good test for Miles Michaelis, and I thought his stuff was electric. Yeah, it just the skies opened up, and they couldn't get him to close. So he's a big, strong, durable guy. I would not be surprised if we see him tonight. So you have Monty. You didn't really burn up your bullpen yesterday. No, that's another flare. So the last time we saw Jordan Montgomery, which was before the All-Star break, he looked really good in that last start before he had the hamstring issue come up. We saw 3 innings out of Michaelis to start the All-Star break. Perfect. You saw Jack Flaherty yesterday was really good in 6 innings that he pitched yesterday. You're starting to slowly, one time through the order. You can't count the Cardinals out. I know
if you look at the standings, you say, well, wait a minute, they're double digits out of first place. They get on a little bit of a run and go get some help.
Mm-hmm.
They're back in it.
And that's rare.
Because you look at Pittsburgh, they faded.
Mm-hmm.
Cubs are the Cubs. Cincinnati found out how bad they really are because thanks to Milwaukee's pitching. And there's the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So I have not decided that we need to have a fire sale because of what I've seen over the last couple of days. And I think you have guys that now are locked in. I think the two key players this weekend were Burleson and Nolan Gorman.
Mm-hmm.
Two left-handed hitters, and both of them had not only home runs, they hit well off of left-handed pitching. Those are guys that you're going to need when this season gets down to the nitty-gritty. And we haven't even gotten there yet. We're still in July, okay? We have seen the Cardinals catch teams in August.
Right. That's right. So, hey, Rammer and I were going at it last on Friday when we were looking at it. I'm the optimist on that show between the two of us, and I told him, I was like, it's July, and I go 11 games. I was like, it's you've seen it before. I've seen it. I mean, you've seen it happen more times than I have.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not giving up on this team. But again, they can't win with the current roster. So it's still incumbent upon the organization to get somebody to come in. Because here's the thing. We never really replaced Jose Quintana from last year.
No.
Haven't replaced him.
No.
And if you can get a replacement for him, get a little bit more help in the bullpen. And I'm not talking about on the back end because at some point, maybe Helsley will come back. If you have a 1-2 combination, Helsley and Hicks, Gio is going to give you what he has. Find that left-handed filling guy. All of a sudden, if you have 4 guys on the back end, you might be interesting to watch because they can swing the bat.
Yeah, that's yesterday showed that offense 1 through 9. You saw that, and that was without Contreras in the offense
in the last 2 games. 30 hits last 2 games in both days. Everybody got on base.
Mm-hmm.
Arenado got hit by a pitch yesterday. But point being, everybody.
Where'd that one get him, by the way? Because I was there, and it looked like it was just a curveball that didn't curve in there. Yeah,
it just didn't break, and it hit him right in the back of the shoulder. But he's okay. But the thing is, everybody is contributing.
Yeah.
The bottom or the order. I thought one of the biggest hits yesterday was Andrew Kisner going the other way, just trying to drive and run and move some guys along the bases. So when you get guys that are all swinging the bat well. Just give me a little bit of pitching. We may beat some teams 8-7. You may beat some teams that are like on the low end. That's good because what happens if Washington takes 2 out of 3 against St. Louis? Now you're done.
Yeah.
So here comes Miami, who's struggling. They're starting to spit the bit a little bit too. Maybe you get 2 out of 3 against them. You go into Chicago, get 2 out of 3 against them. Then you go to Arizona, who's starting to fade a little bit. Maybe you sweep them. Now all of a sudden you're back in it.
That's I'll bring that up to Rammer again when we do daily cards later today.
He's Mr. Pessimistic.
Yeah, he is.
He's planning for 2025.
Hey, I do want to talk to you about trade deadlines, but let's do so right after this Ameren Minute. This is the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show here with Claibs and Joe. We're live from Mungenast Alton Toyota on claibsonline.com. When there's a big storm with lots of outages and lots of damage, does Ameren Illinois, do they reach out to other companies?
We do. We're part of what we call the Mutual Assistance Network. And that's other companies here in the Midwest that if we need assistance, we can call in resources from the generally contiguous states to Illinois. In a very big storm, there are different mutual assistance organizations across the country. We've called in folks from as far away as Texas and Florida, Colorado to come help out in a storm. And we do the same when hurricanes hit Florida and the Gulf Coast. So we do help each other out. We have a resource in linemen that are in limited supply, so there's only so many linemen in the U.S., and we know that we have to support.
We're back here at Mungenast Alton Toyota. It's the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. When we're in Alton, which means we're right up the road from our friends over at Fast Eddie's.
Fast Eddie's, that's my next stop after we leave here today. But first of all, I want to give kudos to the folks from Ameren, Illinois. We've gone through some really heavy weather here in the last few days, and what they're doing and trying to keep their customers informed on what's going on. I was talking. I have a relative who's in the same business in another state, and they feel like St. Louis, Illinois, the eastern side of Illinois, are so far advanced when it comes to being able to take care of their customers. And certainly these tough times as far as storms are concerned. Kudos to them and being able to get out and get people back with their power. And I don't know if you lost your power at all. I haven't lost it, but I know other people who have, to the point where like I feel like I have a barracks in my house of people are coming over. I'm glad they're there, by the way. But point being, the folks in Ameren, Illinois, and have done such a remarkable job, and they work their butts off in making sure their customers have power. And it's amazing that when you don't have it, that's when you truly appreciate what's going on. And for those folks who are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to make sure their customers have their power, I tip my cap to them, because every state doesn't have the facilities and the know-how and just the manpower and person power that we have here in Illinois, thanks to good folks at Ameren, Illinois.
Claibs, we were talking about whether buyer sellers, what the Cardinals should do right now, 11 and a half games out, but a favorable schedule coming up over the next couple of weeks. So right now, who is on your list of being completely off limits? You're hanging up the phone if another GM even mentions that name.
Wynn, Walker, Goldschmidt, Arenado. I would start with those four.
Okay.
I'm going to listen to everybody. You know, you're not going to move Goldschmidt or Arenado. Okay, we already know that. The Wynn and Walker are your future. And you know what? I wouldn't move Gorman.
Okay. I mean, that was the name. I was wondering if that was going to be included in that, because
move Gorman, and I probably wouldn't move Donovan. Everybody else I'm listening to.
So with Gorman, it seemed like they had, I was wondering what the organization kind of thought, if their thoughts on him maybe faded over, because he was so hot in April and May. No. I didn't know if things had maybe faded on him.
Because he's an athlete. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's made this adjustment from third to second, which is very hard to do.
And they've had him playing both this year too.
And you know what? I thought his defense has gotten better compared to last year. And I said it to you way back in the day. I thought he was the most improved player from last spring training to where we are now. Mm-hmm. Not only at the plate, but I thought his defense, his flexibility, and his ability to make good plays, solid plays. And so I'm going to go back to something. I know some people say, well, what about Saturday on the throw through? Well, here's the deal. They had a no throw in that situation. Somebody forgot about it. You know, I'll say Contreras forgot. He was the guy who called for no throw from the dugout, and it looked like Gorman gave up on the play, because you know what, he will happen. But I think he's made some really good plays at second, solid third baseman. You know, it's amazing. We have like 3 guys in the organization who really play third base, and because of one guy, we may not ever see the other 2 guys ever play it.
So you mentioned Donovan too on your list of a possible no trade.
Gosh, man, I love watching
such
him hit, man.
Right. It's such a. I feel like they could get so much back in return, but I wouldn't want to. He's a leadoff hitter. He could play. No. He could play 7 different positions for the team. It just seems like he is so valuable to just whatever spot you need, boom, he can go there and he can play that for.
He's so valuable for the reasons you mentioned. He's a baseball player. I mean, he gets it. He understands it. You know, he could be your left fielder next year. I mean, he's that good of a player that I think that with the game and how it works now, with the versatility you need to have with your ball club, you got to keep a guy like that. He and Tommy Edman are the same guy. Edman is our best center fielder right now. But overall, I think Donovan can do more at the plate than anyone you're talking about.
Yeah. So got a few weeks before we get to that point.
We got 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, until the end of the month to make some decisions. But you don't want another decision where you give away a guy or trade a guy, and all of a sudden you see him do even better in somebody else's uniform.
Yeah. So we'll keep it all. We'll keep an eye on all that here on Claibs Online, Daily Cards Live. Good Nightingale as well. You and Bob Nightingale talking it over every week, talking baseball. And I filled in for you last week since Bob and I were there at the All-Star game. So you and Bob will get back at it again.
We will get it on Thursday. I'll be in Chicago. Who knows where Bob will be? Bob is that's one great thing about him as a columnist. He can go anywhere when he needs to. And I don't know very many people who have more connections and is as respected by his peers and the players and the coaches and the managers and the general managers as Bob is. And to have him be part of what we do just really says what we're all about as a website and providing the best people in the business, being able to talk about a sport that we all truly appreciate here in St. Louis.
We will be back. I want to talk a little college stuff. A lot of college coaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, few things. You can cover some of it when you're up in Chicago this next weekend and find out what the latest
Do
is.
I need to apply for a job up there? There's apparently some openings.
A few. And we'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show here on claibsonline.com.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep. You could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
We can talk about that too.
Back here, it's the Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. We are at Mungenast Alton Toyota, 850 Homer Adams Parkway. You can find them online at altontoyota.com. Also, stlouisacura.com. Go to either one of the sites. You can see all of the new and used cars they have in their inventory right there at the website. So you know exactly what you're looking for when you head out to their lot.
They have a Volkswagen Beetle here. You don't see those on the lot.
Where
it's down
over that way. You got, like you mentioned, all makes and models, anything that you want, not just Toyotas here on the lot out
but
here.
We love Toyotas.
Yeah, they got some of the Grand Highlanders that they're rolling out with. Have you seen those yet?
I have.
Yeah,
very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of those folks who likes to drive and travel, this Grand Highlander might be for you. It has every bell and whistle you can ever imagine. It's got plenty of room. I think it's one of the great summer vehicles. If you want to drive the country, I think I'd have one of those.
Yeah.
You think we can have one?
By the way,
we go to Florida this year?
You know what? That's a request. If you make it to Jamie, I think he'll say yes.
Well, they're in such demand. I don't want to take away from the inventory. But
whatever,
man, what an impressive vehicle. I was reading about it the other day.
We keep getting the hybrids. That'll do just fine.
Hybrids all good.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Whatever hybrids
electric
they have.
Vehicles are just around the corner.
Yeah, driving those back from Florida, it makes for a lot less stops coming up on for those. Hey, so I can't remember when the Bob Huggins news broke last week. We didn't talk about it on the show last week.
It was right after when you were in Seattle. It broke the next day, where basically he said, "I didn't sign that. I didn't." It was from his wife's email account, the whole 9 yards. But here's the deal: Huggins stepped in it again.
Right.
They've been looking for a reason to get him out of here, and they now have it.
Yeah. He already had made the comments on the radio show that already got him suspended, and then you did that, and it's like, listen, okay, we're done. But
the thing with him is this whole drinking thing. This isn't the first time. I think because where he was at in other cities, other places, they kind of say, well, he's Coach Huggins, we'll let it go. Apparently, this was so heinous that they had no choice.
He didn't know what city he was in when it happened.
What's wrong with that? I've had that. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's one of those situations where they have a chance to cut the cord and they want to do it. And I don't know whether he's looking for more money in this situation or what, but Huggy's close to 70. So I'm not sure if there's some program that would take him on with all his baggage, especially in this society that we have of making people accountable for their actions, no matter who you are. Same can be said in Northwestern. I know they got rid of the baseball and football coach in 1 week because they listened to their fan base or their alums and making sure they maintain certain standards. I don't know enough about either one of them to say it was right or wrong. I just know this. Today's culture does not allow you to be as abusive verbally as you once were. And I'm a little older than you, but I'm sure you played for coaches who are yellers and screamers and maybe said some things that you took, but you didn't take them personally. Now everybody takes things personally.
And it's all about, you have to know too what players you have that you can coach like
Absolutely.
that. I have said
agree.
this for, so I was not a good defensive catcher. I learned how to become a defensive catcher when I went to Western Illinois, and the catching coach that we had there kind of scared it into me, and it worked. And the way he did that, it worked for me. Now, unfortunately, he never made it to the season because he had a similar Bob Huggins situation. But you know what? For the few months that I had him in the fall and winter, that worked, and that scared it into me. And you have to know your players for that. If you don't have that, I don't think kids like that are going to Northwestern, though.
Well, that's true. They're going there to own the team,
right?
Not be part of the team. It's interesting how you bring that up because, like, I had coaches. I had guys who were yellers and screamers to certain people, and I didn't really want to catch, okay? But I could catch. I could throw. I had good hands. But I had a guy who would ask me questions, and basically he coached me by asking me to talk back to him. And it made me a good player, a really good player, at a position that I really didn't want to do. I wanted to play elsewhere, but I was that guy, much like yourself, who could do a lot of things, but he knew how to push the button. Mm-hmm. I think what we have now is we don't have enough coaches who understand how to push certain buttons with certain people.
Yeah.
It's their way or the highway, and that doesn't work anymore.
I want to talk about the Northwestern baseball program first, because
I didn't even know they had a baseball program.
They got every sport there. Have you seen the names that are being thrown out there for their
No.
Joe Girardi is one of the names that's being thrown out there.
Well, he's mentioned for every job. I know he's a Chicago guy,
right,
the whole 9 yards, but Joe Girardi is probably better suited for the big leagues, and I think obviously Northwestern would like to have him. What's Joe Girardi going to do in the Big Ten?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not even a baseball conference.
He is apparently a Northwestern alum,
right?
So he went. And then Mark Loretta also being thrown out there too.
Those guys are Major League Baseball people. I mean, it's nice to say that, but you talk about a step down.
Chicago ties, though, too.
Yeah, who cares? I mean, though again, the Chicago. This is Northwestern. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
This is not a real program like in Illinois or Ohio State or Michigan, who's had a record of having turned out good players. This is in LSU or Florida, somewhere where baseball is a tradition, not a necessity. So
Big Ten has some. I mean, they're not. I mean, the SEC obviously runs college baseball, as they do with football
Pac-12,
too. And
listen, the Big Ten for baseball, I'm sorry, doesn't work.
What hurts the Big Ten when it comes to baseball is where the schools' locations are when you're starting the season in February. It's real hard to go play in Lansing, Michigan in February, in mid-February to start the season.
Having said that, they turned out some pretty good players.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, Dave Winfield. You just mentioned Northwestern and Joe Girardi. Michigan, Mike Matheny. I mean, there's a lot.
Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State. Some of the guys that have come through there. Mark Mulder, Michigan State.
So I mean,
Jim Abbott, Michigan.
It's not a terrible conference, but I think that Girardi and Loretta have more to offer a major league organization than they have a college team, because first of all, and they had to fix this. Full scholarships are very far and in between because you don't have enough scholarships to have legitimate players. You go to the SEC, they say, well, don't worry about a scholarship. We'll pay for you to come here anyway. So you have that to deal with. And at some point, college baseball has to figure out how it can be more attractive to young people who, when they get drafted, they say, the ones who have the full scholarship, there's only a handful. There's a lot of guys who are on partial that we never see. And the reason why they're partial is because they don't have enough money to pay everybody on the roster. Hence the reason they get drafted and go play Major League Baseball, go into somebody's organization.
And still probably not making enough money doing that, but still it's money, and the opportunity is there to break out in some capacity and make more along the way. Northwestern football, they haven't announced even an interim coach or anything, have they? I mean,
no, they have somebody who's running it for the time being. But here's my question. At this time of the year, what good coach is sitting at home unemployed?
Exactly.
And you fired your head coach because his assistants were bat crazy.
Yeah. So
are you going to hire somebody from that staff?
Mm-hmm.
That staff that got the head coach fired? So they're in a tough. They might want to take a mulligan and say, we want to take this year off because we have no idea what we're doing.
I mean, Jeremy Pruitt's out there. They could go get him.
Well, no, he can't coach for another 6 years.
Can he not coach, or can he just not make bowl games or postseason? He can't coach at all.
No, he's done.
Okay. How about that? They are what the punishment that Tennessee was.
So I agree with the decision. The guy who was in charge, he's done.
Mm-hmm.
The program took it on, so they get slapped. But because the only reason why they didn't get a harsher sentence is they got rid of the guy. So they're not going to let kids today pay for the mistakes of somebody else. And so I think there's a middle ground because it only hurts the university financially. And I don't know if you've noticed, they have 104,000 to show up every Saturday.
He apparently was giving recruits money, cash money, inside McDonald's bags.
Here's the thing. What he's doing now, I mean, what he did then, now is almost accepted.
Right.
So my issue with him is, man, had you waited a couple of years, you could have done this and nobody would have said anything.
That's just to know what some of the other punishments were, though, I mean, it's such a hit and miss as far as punishment fits the crime in the NCAA that we've seen it though for years.
It's going to be out of business in 3 years. It's coming, and I've said this to you countless times. That the Power 5 conferences will secede from the NCAA as we know it, or the NCAA is going to have to change the way they live.
Yeah.
Now, they hired a guy who he was a politician in the state of Massachusetts. And I think they feel like they want to try, and the NCAA is trying to push this thing to Congress and let them regulate what they do.
Mm-hmm.
These Power 5 conferences, we're not going to let. And Congress can't even get their own act together. How are you going to let them regulate what we do?
Yeah.
So the NCAA will always have a place, but the Power 5 conferences are going to move on and create their own situation where they can regulate things with regards to recruiting and TV money and all the other things and make them who they are.
We will take our final break. We're out here at Mungenast Alton Toyota here in Alton, Illinois, 850 Homer Adams Parkway. This is the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. Let's take 1 minute with the Painting and Decorating Foundation.
So what made you get involved in this program? I mean, you had multiple options, I'm sure, but what made you think that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, I wasn't quite sure what kind of career path I wanted to take at the time, and I heard about the Painters Union and all the great things about it. Basically, they put you through this apprenticeship. It's a 4-year apprenticeship, and they teach you everything you need to know about the trade. So it was pretty hard for me to pass up once I heard that.
Well, I think mostly it was just knowing that, they're here to protect you, the union is, and knowing that I was going to be able to take my time to learn. It wasn't going to be one of those things where they're forced to, day one, jump right into it. And I think once I figured that out, I mean, I love an opportunity to grow, and I think that's the best thing for a job.
So, Clay, as far as the sports world goes,
Before you do that,
Mhm.
I want to talk about the Painting and Decorating Council. We're in a generation now where, college is great. If you can go get a college education, that's phenomenal. But I will say this, college is not for everyone, but what the Painting and Decorating Council can provide for a young person is incredible because they give them a skill set that they can take anywhere in the world. And this is the council who thought enough, their union thought enough to put this together to make sure they gave other people, young people, a chance to develop and grow. And it's something that I think if you're a parent and your kid is like not sure what they want to do next, you know, when I was that age, you had two choices: go to college or go to the Army. Now the Painting and Decorating Council gives you an opportunity to hone a skill. This is a true skill that I can do. I don't know about you. I'm terrible with, but my point being this: if you're not sure what your kid's next decision is going to be, present this to them. Check out the Painting and Decorating Council and what they are able to provide, and I guarantee you, you will have greater comfort, finality about what your kid's future is going to be, or maybe yourself. Maybe you want to change what you're doing. This is something you really need to try and explore, because once you learn about all the things they provide, you may say, this is for me, especially at this time in your life. So check them out, give them a call, go out and see them. They have an incredible facility. It's not far from St. Louis that you can see for yourself and what they're able to do. And there are a lot of people who have gone through that process that have found themselves to be successful and very happy with their career.
Claibs, I was going to say, so right now you're in kind of the lull of the sports season. Baseball is it. We're waiting for football to get going. Basketball still a few months away, unless you're into summer league stuff. NHL the same. So trying to find other stuff to watch. And we were talking about it off the air. You got the you're working your way through the Wilt Chamberlain documentary.
Yeah, it's on Paramount Showtime, and Wilt Chamberlain is one of the greatest athletes of our lifetime that nobody ever talks about. He set records in college. He set records in the NBA. He was a phenomenal volleyball player as well as track star at Kansas. Not to mention the story that he wrote in his book where he apparently was with 20,000 different women, or 20,000 women. You can do the math on that. So, you know what? I know people are like, oh, nobody could be with 20,000. So my question is, what if he was half right? 10,000. You know, there are people who can say maybe I had 10 or 2. But Wilt Chamberlain.
Who do you think has more, him or Flair?
Flaherty.
Ric Flair.
It's Wilt. No, Wilt. I thought you said Flaherty. I said he hadn't been on the planet long enough to have that many.
Oh, Ric Flair.
But he's got a chance.
Ric Flair, the nature boy.
Yeah, you know what? I think Wilt's in the clubhouse with the lead. Because you know why? Because Flair couldn't remember half the ones he was with. Who's one of my favorite people? We had to talk about him one day. I spent an evening with Ric Flair, and yeah, it's a memorable night. But my point being,
we will put when we get to a paid subscription of Claibs Online, that's the first episode will be the night you hung out with Flair. That people will have to pay. It'll be a pay-per-view, pay-per-listen for that one.
You know what? The documentary that they ran on ESPN about him is one of my favorites because that was my era. You know, Ric Flair, Nature Boy, Ric Flair. But anyway, going back to Chamberlain, if you check out this documentary about what an impressive athlete he was. And here's the thing so he and Bob Gibson were friends because they were on the Globetrotters together. But Chamberlain was one of the first athletes to push back on salary. He threatened not to play. He was one of the first holdouts in sports. No, I'm not playing. I can do something else. And to show you how good he was of a player, the Philadelphia 76ers offered him a contract. Now he started with the Sixers. He was 43 years old, had been retired for God knows how long. And they offered him a contract. They wanted to bring him back because that's how good a shape he was in. He turned it down, but he was there. He would have been there with Julius Erving, Charles Barkley,
Moses Malone,
Momo. I mean, that would have been an incredible combination. But this is a guy that most people don't talk about because they don't remember him. I do. Maybe the strongest man to ever play in the NBA.
Oof.
And I say that because if you looked at him physically, skinny, but the conformation he had, he was so strong where he never got pushed off the block. Now, in my opinion, the strongest guy I ever saw was Ralph Sampson. I once saw Ralph Sampson curling dumbbells at 75 pounds. I don't know about you. I don't know what you curl.
Not 75 pounds.
And then here's the kicker. He put on 25 more.
Oof. So you think are more than Shaq? Stronger than Shaq?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shaq was more powerful.
Yeah.
But I think Ralph was strong. But I never saw him get pushed off the block.
So you want to talk about guys curling 75 pounds? The documentary I've been watching, I'm about halfway through it right now. Muscles and Mayhem, the unauthorized story of the American Gladiators. It's on Netflix. 6-part series for that. You remember late 80s, early 90s. Just the process of that show being put together.
Here's
and
my question,
the common sense that was not used.
Here's the thing. They were strong, but did they get some help?
Oh, that's in there.
Okay.
That's in there about the guys just walking in the locker room and seeing the needles just all over the place,
Okay.
or them having to figure out when they went on tour,
So-
having to figure out how many needles they needed to go do a 40-city tour.
And you know what? And I have to watch it because I want to know their health at this point in their lives.
There are a few. I mean, they don't look anything like what they did, obviously, 30 years ago. But there are some of you are seeing some of the American Gladiators that are interviewed on the screen for it, and I mean they look 30 years different. They're not as big and everything, but
What's their health situation? How many people have they
so
lost?
I'm going to guess that's something they're going to get to later on.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that seems like something they would save for the end of it.
Okay.
But just like a tryout they had for one of them. They had one of them show up in a parking lot in the studios in Hollywood, and they had a waiting room. They didn't have that stuff. He was like, here, meet us in this parking lot, and they had some college kids show up and try to run into him and knock him over in a parking lot, concrete. To where he said he was like, I tackled him and I thought I killed him because his head hit the ground. And it's just the things that were not thought of in some of these events and some of these sports. That's on Netflix.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that. Too.
It's a 6-part series. I'm in the 4th episode of it right now.
Hey, there's a great film out in theaters called Black Ice about the history of people of color who played in hockey, going back to when first black hockey players were in Newfoundland. And talked about the ascension to where we are now. And they interview a lot of people. I know the people who put it together. I'm a little disappointed they didn't ask me because I've seen virtually every player that's ever played in the National Hockey League. I know I've seen everybody. But point being, it's very interesting. And they talk about the progression and the things that they dealt with, much like baseball or any other sport, anybody who's a person of color who had to deal with. But I think hockey probably stands out more than the other sports, considering that, people of color always played football, basketball, and baseball. They just weren't allowed to play at the major league level. But in this sport, hockey, like where do black people learn how to skate? Where do they learn how to do this and do that? It's a very interesting film that I would suggest people. It's in theaters now.
Okay.
Check it out. So
But
now
speaking
you
of
have
theaters,
our movie review because nothing else.
I was going to say, you can go. Oh no, Oppenheimer, doesn't that come out this weekend?
So have you seen Mission Impossible?
I have not.
I saw that.
I don't think randomly over the Friday, my son said, hey, have you ever seen the Indiana Jones movies? I'm like, yeah, I've seen them, I guess. He was like, I want to watch them. So I was like, all right. So we just went through. He wanted to watch the first one, so the original ones.
One of my most favorite collection of films.
So we watched the first 3, and he was all about them.
Because you know what,
we haven't seen the one that was 2005 or 2008, whatever. The one before the
most recent one,
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
So,
we haven't watched that one yet.
That generation, the first one, we didn't have adventure films like that. And I know Harrison Ford, who's I think in his 80s now.
Yeah.
I love that sequence of films because Spielberg and Lucas were at their best then. They
John Williams too. The music behind it.
Absolutely right. So it's something that's like dear to me because I wasn't a Star Wars guy. I think I've seen like 5 minutes of Star Wars, but the Indiana Jones collection is something I've always appreciated. And you know what? The Mission Impossible, I remember the TV show.
I had no idea it was a TV show.
Really?
Until you just said it right now, I had no idea.
Are you kidding me?
I had no idea.
This was so cutting edge in the 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
Dude, this is You have to. If you watch it, it still is.
This was number 7, right? This was the 7th, I think they put out there.
I don't know, but here's where
So I'm far behind on those.
So here's the kicker about that. Tom Cruise had no job. Remember the studio fired him and let him go, but he held on to the whole Mission Impossible thing. He bought the rights to it, and he's more important than any studio right now.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. He's developed that into something, and it's like Indiana Jones.
This was his biggest weekend, his biggest opening weekend ever in the history of all the movies that Tom Cruise has come out with.
Well, here's the thing about Tom Cruise. There's 2 things you're going to see. Great stunts, and he's going to be running somewhere. There's always a point where I'm surprised he's not been on the USA track and field team. He's got to be good for the 100-yard dash.
I mean, I'd have to catch up and watch all the other ones before then.
You can go on YouTube and watch the TV show.
I had no idea until you mentioned
Martin
it.
Landau, Peter Graves, Barbara Bain, Peter Lupus, Greg Morris, and they put a brother in it. Greg Morris was the technical guy. And I cannot believe
Absolutely. Okay. I mean,
folks, we have a generational gap here. Okay, generational gap. All right, so
I'm gonna go
next week.
I'm gonna go ask some friends and ask them if they knew this.
Talk to your parents.
Yeah,
we do this next week. We're gonna do a like you used to call it a book report on the book you read. Next week, you're gonna tell me about Mission Impossible TV show.
I will. All right, that's
so he's got 7 days, folks, to figure out Mission Impossible. I'm gonna tweet this out that Joe Roderick has never seen the TV show.
Didn't know it existed. Didn't know.
So you're doing daily cards later.
Yeah,
drop it on Rammer.
I will,
and he will admonish you.
All right.
Well, you're younger. I guarantee
Rammer will throw. So what Rammer will do from time to time is he will throw out quotes from like old westerns.
What's wrong with that?
But no, he'll just throw them out there to see if I get the reference on it, and I don't. That's what he does.
So here's the deal. So Rammer and I are literally best friends. We would text each other when certain movies are on, and we would drop lines on each other that only he and I will appreciate. Like Rio Bravo is one of our favorites, or McClintock. You never saw that movie either.
No.
I won't hit you. I won't hit you. The hell I won't. And then he co-cost a guy. So, all right, you have to spend one weekend with Rammer and I. I'm serious. Off season.
All right,
we're gonna have like a weekend. You call your wife and say, "I'm not with anybody. I'm hanging out with these 2 guys, and we're gonna watch certain films and TV shows."
All right, hey, so next week we'll get to all that next week.
I'm serious, man. If you
I'll go.
You show up next week and not know anything about the TV show.
I'm intrigued by this now.
It might be lunch with just Claibs, folks, because he's gonna be busy doing something else.
I'm intrigued by this because I'd never heard it. I mean,
you gotta be kidding me.
We'll go ask. You can go bring it up to Jamie too.
Peter Graves here. So you ever watched Law and Order?
Yeah.
So you remember the first guy who was the district attorney? God, what's his name? He was the first guy on Mission Impossible.
I know who you're talking about.
Older guy.
He
was an ordained rabbi as well.
I know who you're talking about. He was in
Stephen Hill. Stephen Hill, I believe his name was.
Oh, I was going to say Sam Waterston or Jerry Orban.
No, it's before him.
Oh, before that. Okay.
He was the first guy.
Stephen Hill. Yeah.
Stephen Hill. He was the first guy on Mission Impossible to accept the mission. He ran the whole thing.
I'm gonna go find him. I'll go find it. I subscribe to enough things that I'm sure it's out there. That full episodes are out there somewhere. I cannot believe,
ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of claibsonline.com and this show, and I love this guy. I apologize for him not knowing because of his youth, but I'm sure by the time we do this next week, because he's going to talk to his parents, he's going to talk to Rammer, he's going to go online and find all this information out. He will be able to come to the room about Mission Impossible. Okay.
I got
it's
okay,
man.
I got my homework assignment.
No, I'm man. You're my guy, man. But I'm just saying.
That's fine. I have nothing else. Hey, youth baseball season's over with for right now. I got a few weeks off of that. I really.
You will binge this.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jack Ryan. Have you watched Jack Ryan?
I have not watched that one yet. No, I that's one though that is. I mean, it's on my list.
Season.
Yeah.
I love the cast. You have to start watching that.
Yeah.
You start from the beginning. It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
You got to check that out.
It's with the guy
He was in
John Krasinski.
Yeah,
John Krasinski. No, I'm familiar
Wendell
with that. I
Pierce,
just haven't watched
who
it
was in
yet.
The Wire. Some other new characters, some new actors that we haven't seen before.
What I've been
Man,
binging
you got
lately,
nothing to do-
what I've been binging lately is Seinfeld. I've seen it all before. But I just started watching it to see how it held up. I just wanted to see how it holds up over time.
I'm gonna tell you another show like that. It's Sopranos. How did that hold up?
Yeah.
I was not a Seinfeld person. Watched a couple of episodes. It's okay. So, but I think we're in that part of our lives where we binge watch things. And I think where you said it, the way it held up.
That's all. I just kind of put it on. I was like, you know what? I just need something because they're quick. They're 22 minutes, and I just wanted to see.
Forget about the fashion. Does the humor and
that was what it was. Yeah. And the storylines and everything. Does that work? And that's kind of what I've been on lately. But I have a new assignment
folks,
for this
we
next
get out
week.
of here because we got a lot of TV watching to do between now and next week.
Hey, we want to thank our friends here at Mungenast Alton Toyota at 850 Homer Adams Parkway for having us out here today. I'm sure Claibs is going to go right there to the back room and mention it to Jamie.
Also, the Ascension Golf Classic that's coming up. Who else do we need to thank? Our good friends from
Fast Eddie's, Gray Bar. Absolutely. It's Burger Week. I'll tell you more about that on Daily Cards Live with Bootlegging. And it's Burger Week. Yeah.
All right. So how do you like your burger?
So my favorite type of
I'm like, I want a smash burger.
I like a Royale burger.
What's that? The big thick one?
No, it's just burger with an egg on it.
Eggs and I guess that's like steak and eggs.
Fried egg on a burger. So when you bite into it, yep.
That means I would have to put.
It's a little messy.
Yeah, I don't want stuff running down.
Yeah, it's a little messy.
No, I want like a flat grill, Shake Shack, steak and shake, something that's flat that I can dress it. I don't need something I'm gonna be wearing it out of the restaurant.
Yeah, if it's the Royale burger, I've never had it before.
So Royale,
yeah,
another movie. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction.
I've seen Pulp Fiction.
The scene
it's been a long time since I've seen Pulp Fiction, but I know
Folks,
that I have seen Pulp Fiction.
He may not be here next week because he'll be still watching movies and suggestions.
All right, well, we got to get out of here so I can get started on all of this.
It's going to take a while.
He's Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show here on ClaibsOnline.com.
The Legends of Golf return to St. Louis in 2023. You won't want to miss one of the strongest fields in golf. Ernie Els, Steve Stricker, Bernard Langer, John Daly, and many more when they compete for the 2023 Ascension Charity Classic title, September 5th through the 10th at historic Norwood Hills Country Club. All proceeds benefit area charities. Together, we were able to donate over $1 million to those most in need last year. Visit AscensionCharityClassic.com.